Okay. I'm DA, alongside 15-year tour caddy Mick Middlemo. As we like to say, we're just a couple of guys that love to talk about the game of golf, inside and outside the ropes, but from a different perspective.
Very different.
You ready?
I'm born ready. Ready to go. Let's go. Let's do this.
Let's grip it and rip it. How you doing?
Mate, I'm fantastic.
How was your week?
Usual, busy. Just the usual thing. Couple of drinks with some friends and just hanging out as usual.
We're on weekend time, even though we're not really on a weekend right now for you, right?
No, this is not my weekend. This is my one day off and then back to work tomorrow.
Then back at it. So we got to take it easy today.
A lot easier than I did last night. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I really enjoy. The hospitality business can be hard, can be rough. It can be like caddying. It's like anything. It's like any job. It can be tough. But I had a couple of rough weeks at work. So when I had the day off last night, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go and have a few beers with some friends. And we had a ball last night. We had a lot of fun. But it was a bit rough when I woke up this morning. But
so took it a little easier today than normal.
Yeah, tonight will be a very quiet night. I can assure you.
Well,
so we say.
Before we dive in, I got a chuckle this week. So this podcast is being recorded well before we even launch. Okay,
correct.
So there are a couple of shows, both locally and nationally, that all of a sudden are starting to talk about caddies. Now, as you and I have been out, we've been talking to clients, we've been talking to guests, we've been getting this set up because that's what you do as you're building a podcast like this. You've got to get out and get interest both from a content standpoint and a financial standpoint to get these things launched. Well, now we've got some competitors already out in the marketplace.
Here we go.
Starting to talk about caddies that have never, I shouldn't say never. I think once in a while they'll talk about them, but now are already starting to plan segments out.
I need to know who this is.
Well, we'll get in. We'll get to it.
Do I?
Here's the funny part.
Do I know them?
Oh yeah, you would know them.
Okay.
So here's what I'm laughing about though. We're already in their heads, and we haven't even teed off yet.
Yeah, see, that's what golf is. You got to get in someone's head. I like this. I'm actually really interested to find out who this is.
So I got to ask you this: have you ever been in somebody's head, or have you been out on the course where you've been in somebody's head before you even hit the first ball? To the point where they are just they're
as a player.
Either as a player or while you were out there as a caddy, like
as a player for sure.
Yeah,
Vijay Singh, Canadian Open.
Really?
Oh, at 1,000% got into his head before he even teed it up. I was caddying for Trip Eisenhower, Georgia Tech guy, and Vijay had a little altercation back in Australia, back on the Asian tour, where he may have been accused of cheating.
Okay.
And skipping out on hotel bills and stuff like this. Was before Vijay was Vijay. This was Vijay as starting to learn the game and grow in the game and stuff before he was a mega superstar.
Yeah.
Well, he got banned from certain tours.
Okay.
For
maybe
you can check it out. For maybe erasing something that he shouldn't have, like a score perhaps, and stuff like that. So he hadn't played in Australia forever. And we were at the Canadian Open. I'm caddying for Trip Eisenhower, and we get on the first tee, and I said to Trip, do you think I should ask him? Like, first time I've ever been paired with Vijay, I said, do you think I should ask him, like, if he's ever going to come back and play in Australia? And Trip was one of those guys, and Trip's a really good guy. He was the best man at my second wedding of how many I've had, a lot. Don't go there. A lot.
3.
Yeah, 3. It's 3. It's 3. Yeah, no fourth. And he's like, you won't do that. I'm like, you damn straight I will. So he gets on the tee, and we're just like introducing ourselves. Hey, Vijay, Mick, Vijay, blah, 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 all this stuff. I said, I haven't seen you play in Australia for a while, Vijay. You think you'll ever go back down and play in Australia? And the look that he gave me was just like, and Tripp sort of just turned away and started laughing. And Vijay's like, maybe in a few years I may come back down there and play. And he was just like, I don't think he could believe that I actually asked him that question. But basically, it's like, if I got into his head, if I could help get into his head to help my player,
you're going to do it.
1,000%.
I mean, we know the stories about players getting on the tee. They're nervous because they're playing with Tiger Woods. Because of the crowds and everything else that went along with it. I was just curious because I found it humorous as I'm listening to some national shows, and all of a sudden they're talking about caddies. Now, there is a great show out there that had Michael Collins, and you're friends with Michael.
I do know Michael very well.
And he does a great show with Jason Sobel. They talk about this. By the way, this podcast will never help you with gambling as it comes to golf or anything else out there. We are, because I've got our results still from the upcoming week, this past week of the NFL. So we'll touch on that. Let's be very clear.
Did anybody get it right?
Well, we're our record isn't good.
Oh no,
no. Okay. Anyway, I will say Jason and MC, phenomenal, great show. That's okay. He's a caddy. He's a former caddy, but they go completely down the lines of gambling.
Yes.
We're in other shows' heads now, and we haven't even launched.
I like this.
This is fantastic.
I'm actually curious to find out. I know Mikey Collins really well. Mikey Collins interviewed me after Will Wilcox only won at TPC Sawgrass. Mikey's a great dude, wonderful guy. He was a comedian, very funny guy. Did a little bit of caddying. I don't think he did a crazy amount of caddying, but just a good guy. But he's got the great personality for what he does, and he's great on ESPN. And he does great. He's a good dude, really good dude.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna get into the picks. So for those that are tuning in, a few weeks ago we I'm gonna say we made our selections for the division. Now, there are only two divisions that you and I differed on.
That's kind of scary in itself still. That we think
we're not doing well in the ones that we agreed upon.
Is anybody?
Yes, probably. Not us.
No way. The way the season's going, it's not. No, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, the good news is as of last week, you you were trailing me by one.
Now I'm.
But in fairness, you did ask for a mulligan. But I
didn't take it.
You didn't. You hit it OB and you.
I didn't take it.
Right. You
played
won. Your provisional
and they won.
You must have hold out
and they won.
Yeah. We're tied now. Okay. So you're back. We're even with a losing record, both of us.
Okay.
So I got to ask you a question. Because you're wearing a Julio jersey.
This week.
What did you think about the Monday night game? And did you listen or watch that Monday night broadcast?
I watched the Monday night broadcast. And I'm going to be completely honest here.
Yeah.
I got up out of the bar I was at and left before the end of the game.
That's fair.
But I also got in my car and listened to it on the radio. So I listened to it, but I was annoyed towards the end of the game. And because obviously if Saquon Barkley catches that ball, we're having a whole different conversation this week. The whole narrative would have changed. We're 0-2, the narrative's bad, this is, but everyone's so hyped up and pumped up this week because we come back and won, which was great because that doesn't happen in Atlanta. It does not happen here.
Right.
Very rarely does it happen. It was awesome.
And you and just so our listening audience knows, you and I are both transplants to
Correct.
Atlanta.
Well, yes, obviously my voice sounds a little not Southern.
Well, right, neither does mine. I'm definitely not Southern by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, I am Southern. You don't get much
Southern Australia.
You don't get much further. You don't get much further south than me. But no,
further south.
But I am a die-hard Falcons fan.
Yeah,
and I was not growing up in Australia. And you don't know this, I don't believe.
No, this is breaking news.
Growing up in Australia, I was a die-hard Redskins fan, Commanders fan, as they are now. Because in Australia, they used to show two teams on TV. Basically, it was either the Redskins or the Cowboys. That was it.
Yeah,
they used to show one of those two teams. And I jumped on the Redskins when it was Joe Theismann, John Riggins.
I was just about to say,
Monk.
Based on our ages, the Redskins at that time,
the Hogs, and all that sort of stuff. So I was like, I jumped on that bandwagon pretty quick.
By the way, they caused me probably the most pain I've ever had as a Lions fan.
A Lions
in that NFC Championship game when they absolutely throttled us. I think Barry went for -1 or -4 yards that day.
Glad you think
that was
the positive stuff. But
yeah, that was.
So even when I first moved over here, I lived in Chicago for 10 years. I wasn't a Bears fan. I still stayed with the Redskins. And when I moved to Atlanta, I just all of a sudden jumped on this whole, and I had a friend of mine who worked for the Falcons in the marketing department, and he would look after me with gear and stuff like that. So I'm a passionate Falcons fan now. Yeah. I am passionate when it comes to the Falcons. Like, that game the other night was going to hurt me if they lost. I mean, I was like seething, like, if they're going to lose this game. And
part of it is they had it.
Yes,
they had the opportunity to win on the road, which in the NFL is very hard to do. It doesn't
especially in Philly.
Well, we hadn't won since 2012, if I remember right.
Especially in Philly, and it's a national game. It's everything like this, and the thing I was excited about was, like, the first play of the game, Kirk Cousins was under center. I was going to drink a shot just because he was under center. Because
I figured you did.
Yeah, I did, okay. Obviously. Yeah. But I was just like, oh, man, he's under center. Great. Yeah. We're not playing the shotgun or the pistol all week, and it looked like it looked like the Kirk Cousins I know. Yeah. That's on my fantasy team.
That's on. Oh, there you go. I mean, a couple of touchdown passes.
Even though I didn't start him this week.
That's all right. That's all right.
No, so started Matt Stafford.
So you were listening then when Wes and Dave were calling the whole broadcast on Falcons Radio.
And the good thing about it is, like, we're at the bar I was drinking at, one of the two bars I was drinking at, I watched the first half of one bar, and then I went to another bar to watch the other. It is what I do. It's like all my friends like to drink, and I'm just competitive. I like to drink more than them.
That's good. It's good. As long as we're being responsible, that's good.
Oh, no, yeah, I'm 100% responsible about that. There's no driving or anything like that. It's but then I can literally leave this bar and go to another bar 200 yards down the road. So when the Falcons started to drive, I was just like ducked into this bar, and they were like, "Hey, Mick, how you doing?" I'm like, "I'll have a beer and watch." And so I got to see the actual end of it. So, because I really wasn't going to. If I hadn't turned on the radio, I would have just gone home and cried, and then woke up in the morning and they'd won.
So, I didn't go as far as you did. I was at home. My wife had fallen asleep. I had the volume down. I actually got frustrated with the Monday night broadcast. Not because it was a Jason Kelce love fest.
Oh, yes, it was.
It completely was.
Let's stay in the booth for another hour. Let's stay in the booth for another. It was like, come on, stop. And then every TV commercial had him on it as well.
And I'm gonna preface this by saying it this way: I am a big Joe Buck fan. I like Joe Buck. I've always liked him as a broadcaster. Now, there are a lot that don't. But again, I'm also one from, based on age, remember his father as a radio broadcaster for the Cardinals. I'm a baseball guy. I grew up with Ernie Harwell. I grew up listening. I could still get KMOX in Detroit listening to Cardinals baseball. So, with that said, I'm a Joe Buck fan. He went all Philly Eagle fanboy the other night when Jason Kelce.
Oh yeah, absolutely did. It was like you might as well have had Taylor Swift in the box there as well, because he was just like, it was like, oh yeah, Jason this and Jason this and Jason this and Jason this. I'm like, can we stop? And he's like, can you stay for another series and stay for another series and stay for another series? I'm like, oh please.
When he lost me was on the touchdown call for Philly, when he went all fanboy, and I thought he was jumping up, and I thought he was going to start high fiving.
Probably did,
like we did afterwards. After when they won, the Falcons, that is.
Yes.
It just was one of those most unprofessional broadcasts I've seen, which I'm surprised, because ESPN. I mean, Troy Aikman did a great job keeping everything on the rails. I think Troy's done a great job.
Really good. He does really good.
Him, obviously it must be something with Cowboy quarterbacks transitioning from quarterback to broadcaster, because both him and Tony Romo are phenomenal.
I love Tony Romo. Yeah. He's very, very good. Very good golfer too, by the way. If we ever talk about golf. If we talk golf.
If we ever get to that. So we are. So last episode, and if you didn't catch episode 5, you kind of told us the story of between how you became from bartender to a bagman, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Today, we're going to talk about the glamorous life that it is being out on tour.
For who?
Well, for caddies.
Yeah.
Of course. Because, I mean,
Please don't give me
inquiring minds want to know.
Please don't give me Ted Scott's numbers of how much he won this year.
Netflix. Now, by the way, Netflix Full Swing series. If you haven't seen this docu-series, I think season 1 and season 2 are phenomenal. Now, from a broadcast standpoint, I understand the content. Keegan being recorded while he get bounced from the Ryder Cup. I don't know if I'm putting that out there, but I understand why you do it.
Correct.
But they've done a very nice job of portraying some guys in a great light. Joel Damon is a great example with Gino. But that's a glamorous life. Private jets, fancy hotels.
That's not every caddy on the PGA Tour, unfortunately.
What do you mean? I don't understand, because that's all I see, and that's all I mean. Ted Scott made over $6 million this year. Teddy's
a great guy. Teddy's a great guy. He's won the Masters 4 times as a caddy. Great guy, wonderful guy, and been very fortunate to have that. But on every wonderful story of the Bones and the Teddy Scotts and stuff like that, there's guys who are like trying to cut their teeth on the PGA Tour and make their money as a caddy. And not every player on the PGA Tour is going to be a Scotty Scheffler.
Yeah.
There's going to be guys who just don't keep their cards and make no money. And unfortunately, a lot of the times, I was one of those guys. I mean, I had great guys I caddy for, and I mean, obviously phenomenal players, but not quite having a great year, having a bad year, and then all of a sudden the money's drying up. He's not making money, I'm not making money, and it becomes really tough. There's a lot of caddies who want to share hotel rooms and have 3 caddies in a hotel room, and it's
just meeting ends meet.
Trying to make ends meet. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I'm getting paid, a retainer every week, but if my player's missing the cut, I'm still paying my own. We discussed this, my own, airfares, rental cars, and hotel rooms and things like that. And if you've got a player that misses the cut 6-7 times in a row, there's no money to be made. There's literally no money to be made out there. But you're hanging on, and then all of a sudden, this guy's going to lose his card, so you don't want to lose the opportunity of being on the PGA Tour. So you're looking for the next. Okay, this guy's got his card. I'll try to call this guy and see what happens, or you just stay and say, hey, look, you missed your PGA card this year. You're going to be on the Web.com event next year, Web.com tour. Or Nationwide or whatever it was at the time, Nike tour.
Now Corn Ferry.
Corn Ferry tour, and there it is now. So I'll stay with you for the next year. Well, that's the hardest year you could ever do, because all of a sudden getting $2,000 a week on the PGA Tour as a caddy to take care of your bills, now you're getting $1,000.
Yeah.
And every event's worth $800,000, and first place is 18% to the player,
right,
out of the total purse. And you're going to get 10% of that. So, I mean, I remember having a win in Knoxville, Tennessee, with a guy by the name of Kim Felton from Australia. And I was so excited, and I got $9,500 for the win. And I was like, on the Web.com tour, I'm like, woohoo, I'm rich. I'm like,
you paid for your bills for.
Oh, I'm loaded. And, I'm loaded. And then 4 weeks later, when he's, playing terrible, I'm like, oh, I don't have any money left again. We're broke again.
Back to zero.
Back to zero again. So for every great success story of great caddies, there's a lot of guys who are probably really good caddies, like really good caddies who just don't have the opportunity to caddy for some of these players. Do I think I was one of them? Maybe. Do I think I was a good caddy? Yeah. I mean, the guys who I caddy for will tell you I was a pretty good caddy. I mean, they recommended me to players, but it's hard to get those top tier jobs. It's really hard to get those top tier jobs because there's a lot of guys, out there.
Is every deal structured the same?
No. You'll get guys who will pay you more money
up front
for the week, and there'll be guys who will give you 10% for a win. It's always 10% for a win. I've never heard of anything else less. Some guys it's 10% for a win, 7% for a top 10, and 5% for anything else. I think those days are antiquated.
Yeah.
It's usually 10% and then 8% for anything else after that.
Got it. Well, I was going to ask, obviously, but I mean, the money is different now.
But 10% of nothing is nothing if you miss 10 cuts in a row.
Right.
And I've caddied for guys who have probably missed 10 cuts in a row. And I know I have. And, I was one of the struggling caddies for a long time. And, you know, I never made a great, huge amount of money on tour. I had some great weeks with Greg Owen and Daniel Chopra and Jared Lyle. I had some great weeks, you know, and, you know, if you're making $20,000, $30,000 in a week, you're like, woohoo. And there's a lot of caddies who were doing that every week.
Yeah.
But some of those weeks were like, this is tough. I really need a good week here because otherwise I'm struggling. I've got my mortgage to pay and things like this, and your wife's at home like, you know, how are we gonna cope with this, and are we gonna be okay? Are you gonna make some money on this week and stuff like that? So it's hard. It can be really, really hard at times.
So, with the money being different now, and I know you still have buddies that are still out on tour. What is it? Has it changed for them? Do you still talk to them about it, or is it?
We don't talk money. We don't talk money per se. I mean, obviously, you know, I mean, I've got guys, good friends of mine who now caddy on the Live tour.
Yeah,
they've got some good money.
Yeah,
they're making great money. I mean, do I wish I'd have stayed into it? Yeah, I mean, yeah. Who knows? I might get back into it at some stage. But I mean, I've been with caddies who like literally, and it wasn't per se me, but guys who used to share like 4 people to a hotel room, and this is on the PGA tour. This is not the webcom.
But you weren't renting fancy houses right off the course, and
once I did. Well, I did.
Were you invited?
I was invited.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I was invited. I didn't. Yes, I've had some great invitations for places, but not that I was renting houses by any stretch. That's for sure.
Okay, so I got to ask this question. The craziest story you have from staying in, and for the listener, what type of hotel are we talking about? Like, what type of hotels were you staying in? Like, in my mind, I'm thinking, and nothing out there with anything wrong with any of the ones I'm going to mention, but like the Fairfields, the Holiday Inn Expresses. Yeah. What level?
The Motel 6s.
The Nights Inn.
Yeah, Nights Inn.
Yeah.
Which story do you want to get with first? The Nights Inn.
Is it a single story?
It's a single story. It's a single story. I mean, probably the best story ever was the Nights Inn.
Okay.
Tampa, Innisbrook, Florida. The Innisbrook tournament in Tampa, amazing. Great tournament, great golf course. Love that golf course. The Nights Inn is the closest golf course. Closest hotel to the golf course.
Someone else is stuttering to me.
Yeah,
okay.
Finally.
Yeah. All right.
Because this is actually a very funny story. And I would stay there every year.
Okay.
And it's probably one of the worst hotels I've ever stayed at. But I knew I was getting myself in for. Like, you would walk up to the front desk and sign in, and the lady was like mean as could be. And you'd go back to your room, and there's like one pillow on this queen-size bed. So you'd go back and ask for another pillow, and she's like, well, it's an extra $5. I'm like, oh, there it is, here's cash, and stuff like that. And so there's no one's going to stay there. I mean, literally, like very few caddies would stay there because this place was bad. I mean, bad. But every year there was one car in the parking lot that was a player's courtesy car. Like, all the players get courtesy cars at every event and stuff like that. But there was always one, and it was Boo Weekly. And Boo's a great friend of mine. But he stayed there every year because it was close, and Boo doesn't care. Boo would be sitting at the front of his hotel room every night, sitting in the chair, and he's drinking cans of Busch Light. He's drinking his Busch, and so we'd go and have it. We'd have a few beers, and we would just laugh about the hotel we're staying at because, I mean, it's a dump.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a full-on.
Yeah, but you're there for business purpose. You're in and out. I mean,
literally, you go to the tournament.
You're hoping you're there for a 4-day stay.
You go to the tournament, well, 7 days. You go to the tournament, then there's a Hooters down the road. You go to the Hooters and drink beer, and then you go back to the hotel room and hope you can sleep through the bed bugs and all that sort of stuff, pretty much sort of thing. But he was there every year. Yeah. And this was like 6-7 years in a row. He's there. The last year, before the Nights Inn got pulled down, because they did finally demolish this place, and they should have. I am sitting there, and I'm outside. I'm having a beer too. I'm sitting outside. I'm drinking like Budweiser or whatever it was at the time. And I see Boo, and so I go over and see. He's like, you got to come check this out. I'm like, what? He's like, come and check my room out. So I walk into his room, and he takes me into the bathroom. And the bath itself has this huge hole, like in the middle of the bathtub. He's like, I can't even stand in my shower and take a bath in it. I'd take a shower anymore. Because it's got like the biggest hole you've ever seen. And Boo's like, I don't care, because he's the most chilled dude ever. He's like, but I think this might be the last year I stay here. And I was like, I was the same. I was like, my place, it just got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And yeah, they finally demolished that place. They did. But But it was 10 minutes from the golf course. It was convenient, and I didn't care because it was like one of those places every year I'm like, I can't wait to go back and see how bad this place is, and I'm going to stay there. It was just one of those things. So, but yeah, but
So the glamorous life of the Sheratons and the Marriotts and all the
occasionally you get those.
IMWs.
Occasionally you get those. Like if you get on, like I'd get on Priceline and try to get a cheap hotel room for the night and stuff like that, because that's what we used to do. Like get on Priceline and find a deal, and you'd get something. And but yeah, very rarely. No, mine was more like the Hotel Sixes and
the legal end,
whatever they were. Yeah, I could tell you some bad ones I stayed at. I've got a real bad one up in New England, in Boston. That was probably the worst I ever stayed at. It was called the Guard Motel. It was right by Gillette.
What tournament was this for?
The Deutsche Bank.
Okay.
And it was right by Gillette Stadium, and it was called the Guard Motel. This was 2002, and I literally checked into this hotel, and I was with my girlfriend at the time, and I was like, "There's no way anyone can stay in this room." And the player who I was caddying for, Anthony Painter from Australia, I called him, and he come to the hotel room the next morning to pick me up, and he looked at that hotel room and went, "Oh, you can't stay here. I will pay for you and your girlfriend to stay in another hotel room." And he did. Because it was the worst hotel. I mean, literally the ceiling was like this big. The ceiling fan would hit me. The bed was like this. I mean, the bathroom was just, it looked like it had never been cleaned. And it was the worst hotel I've ever stayed at for one night. And then my player moved me out, thankfully.
Well, I mean, on that note,
I could go on and on and on about hotel rooms.
Well, we'll continue. We're gonna continue the life of a caddy, because everybody seems to think that it's this glamorous life out there. So
yeah,
I know you've got some more stories to tell. So thanks for teeing it up with us. New episodes will drop weekly. Hope your drives are straight, your putts are short, and your scores are low. We'll see you next time as we tee it up on Tales from the Tips.